Hey, David from Comic Book Investments. Do something a little different. I'm talking about the importance of investing and why you should invest. Uh, so this channel is about comics, but it's also about investing and investing in, you know, your future. And comics is just one thing to do that, and you could do that pretty much with anything. You don't have to do that with just comics. Like comics are cool, like I like them. So if you like them, you can invest in them. But also you could do it with stocks. You could do it with real estate. You could do it, with cards, stamps, any collectible item. People even do it with cars. And so the important thing is to just try to learn to open your mind to investing and what that can do for your future. Um, you know, when I was younger, I always just something like my whole family doesn't invest. Everyone in my family is normally in tons and tons of credit card debt, and so I'm trying. I've taught a few of them to invest better, but most of them just kind of live paycheck to paycheck, and as soon as they get money, they're like, oh, I'm gonna buy this, I'm gonna buy that, whatever it is. But I've always been, investing, and it takes a long time. People, I think that's the reason why a lot of people don't do it. Is they'll put like 1,000 or 2,000 away a month, and at the end of it, they're like, oh, I saved like 10 or 12 grand, and then it's like they invest it, and it's like they maybe invest it wrong, or they don't invest the right stuff, or maybe they do invest in the right stuff, and they get like a 5% return, and they're like, oh, I did all this and I got $500. Woohoo, right? And they just don't see. They don't see everything. Every choice you make in life is like a snowball, and it can either turn into a huge giant snowball, or it could peter out and be nothing, or it could be something bad. So basically, you won't see it when that snowball is very small. But when you start, let's say like 15, 18, 20, and there's never a bad time to start. Like you can start at 40, 50. You won't see in the beginning, it's very small. But as like compound interest, as it keeps on going and going and going and going, like you don't see it. Like the SP 500 normally gets about averages. I think they averaged, since they started keeping track of it, like for almost 100 years, averages a 10% return. Uh, so, you know, when you only save 10,000, that doesn't seem like very much, because then you get $1,000 if you put it in like some mutual fund or something that follows the SP 500 EFT or something. Okay, so it's wow. In the next year, you put in 20 and you've made 1,000 the first year, and then 2,000 the next year. It's like, oh, okay, now I got a little more, and then a little more, and then but what you don't notice is like what happens after like 7 years when you're like 100 grand. Well, now when you make 10%, you're making 10 grand. Well, it doesn't seem like that much, right? But give it a little more time, and the next thing you're at 500,000, and the next thing you're at a million, and now when you get your 10% return, you're getting 100 grand a year just off interest, just basically interest off of putting in stocks or whatever, and that's just getting 10%. You can put in like I'm a huge fan of Tesla, and so I've been investing in Tesla for 5 years, and my money's just grown and grown and grown. And you don't have to do stocks; you can do real estate. It's just so like I put I knew that I don't want to pay rent, because rent keeps it like I was with a landlord, and they kept every year raising the rent $100, $150, $200 one year, and I was just like ugh. And so I got tired of it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure out how to get a house. So I made sure I got where I looked up my credit score, saw my issues. I went to it's a funny story. I had I had a mortgage previously. So when I was 23, me and a bunch of friends decided to buy a house. So we bought a house, and then there's the whole financial crisis that happened in like '08, and so there's like these loan modification things, and that was just like a big old scam. I mean, it probably worked for some people. It didn't work for us. They told us to like miss a payment so it looked good, but then we missed a payment, then we could never catch up. So it was on my record. But that was with like a bunch of friends. We ended up selling the house, making a bunch of money because we bought it right at the bottom of the market. It was a fixer upper, and we slowly fixed it up as we lived in it. Made some money. Then I decided to rent. So because I didn't have enough, I couldn't afford enough on my own. So I rented, and this landlord kept on raising my rent every year. And so I was like, okay, I need to buy a house. So I looked at my credit report. I'm like, okay, I had um, like missed payments on my previous mortgage for, I don't know, like a year or so. And then I had some collections and stuff. I think my credit score was in like the 550 or something like that. I'm like, ugh, that's no good. So I went to a credit repair person, just went on Yelp, looked at some good reviews, and the person's like, oh, yeah, I can fix all of that. I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, all this stuff is easy. He's like, the only thing that's hard is credit card debt and student loan, which I didn't have any. I'm always really good with my credit cards. I'm like, okay. He wiped everything clean, everything, missing the mortgage payments, like the collections, all that kind of stuff, like some medical bills, all that kind of stuff, wiped clean. Instantly shot up, from like the 500s to like the mid sevens. And so yeah, so I got that situated. Then I've been saving for like forever, and then got called one place. I didn't even qualify for very much. Then I called around a little bit, found one, and then I decided to buy a home. And the reason why is because even though it was more expensive, like my monthly thing would be more expensive, I knew it was better in the long run because I saw how houses kept going up, and I hated the fact that my landlord kept on raising the rent every year. So I'd rather, when you get a mortgage, you basically lock in your rent for 30 years. Got a mortgage, it was pretty high interest rate, and then I just refinanced a year later. I'm going to refinance again, which is crazy. I refinanced down to 3.8. A year later, now I can get like 2.5, and it's been literally like a year. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And it'll save me $200-$300. So yeah, now I'm going to refinance. That'll save me money. And my rent now, mortgage, is technically cheaper than it was at my previous place, which was smaller. And so, and not to mention how much houses have gone up. And that's like the important things. Like, you have to make sacrifices. Yeah, the sacrifice was, okay, I need to get another roommate, and have them pay rent. And that sucks. Some people don't like living with people, but that's what I had to do. And then it's like, oh, I had to pay a little more to actually own a house compared to renting. So it's like you have to make these sacrifices. But in the end, it was a very short time. I've had this house for like 3 years. And now I'm going to buy another house. But it's a very short time. And, this house has climbed up a ton of value. And that's what it's all about, is making little sacrifices here and there. Like with try to save. I live by the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. 1/3 of my income goes to where I live. 1/3 goes to bills and food and going out, friends, and all that kind of stuff. And another third goes straight into savings. And that's what I do. And then it takes time, but eventually you amass, either a huge collection in comics, either, cards or whatever. And all that stuff that you've put your money into have risen in value. I had a customer, he literally just bought comics and original art for his retirement. That's what he did. And he finally retired. He sold all this stuff to Heritage. And they had a huge auction. He had like one of the best Batman runs of all time. Everything was top grade, 9.6s, 9.8s, 9.4s. And, he sold it all, retired. And that was his retirement. Now he's sitting on a couple million. I imagine that's what his collection was probably worth. And he still has stuff, but that's what he did. He decided, instead of putting it into like a IRA or something, put it into comics. And he's been collecting since 70s, 80s. And so my whole thing is like compound interest. The decisions you make now can affect you either in a good way or a bad way in the future. And it might not seem like you're really saving that much money, putting away $1,000, $500, whatever it is. You can $200, $100, whatever it is. And then, eventually it's, before you know it, because time flies so fast, before you know it, you're sitting on a couple $1,000,000. Like my girlfriend, when we started dating, she had $25,000 in credit card debt. So I was like, look, you got to get rid of this. And the first thing you have to do is budget. So I put her on a budget. Well, she tried to do it on her own. She couldn't. Came to me. She's like, David, I need help. Like, what should I do? Blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, I like this stuff. So I made up a budget, and I'm like, She's like, well, that's barely any money to spend and going out. I was like, but this is what you have to do. You decided to buy all these random, like, drinks or, food or just random stuff that you buy and then never use, and this sits there in the corner. And then it's like, oh, I really need this random table. And then it's like, oh, I hate the table. And it's just like, stuff like that. And you have all this useless stuff. It's like, well, you're going to have to cut all that. And she did. She finally did. She went, and I told her, I was like, look, you don't need to worry about savings right now, because whatever you can save is not as much as your interest rate is going to be on a credit card. Credit card's like 20%, 15%. That's ridiculous. And I told her, so where's the highest credit card balance? This one? Okay, we're going to knock that one out first. And we paid the minimums on everything else and then put all the money towards that. Boom, she knocked it out. And then another one and another one. Eventually, no credit card debt. And then she had all this extra money to put in the savings. Within like a year or two, she was able to knock down all of her credit card debt. And then I taught her how to invest, because her parents never taught her to invest. And I taught her to put in stocks and all this kind of stuff. I'm a big believer in Tesla, so I said Tesla. But I was like, but pick stocks that you like and you think they're good companies and stuff like that. So she picked a few other ones. And now she went from 25 grand in credit card debt to nearly 50,000 in savings, like stocks and savings and stuff like that. She also got like a side job to like really help and all that kind of stuff, which did help. And that's another thing. If you're in tons of debt, get like a little side job. Clear that debt, because you don't want to be tied to the credit cards. And then, now she has a ton of money saved. And so that's the thing with like compound interest and just making right decisions and investing. So I'm just hoping that someone out there will see this video and kind of make a little bit of a life change out there. That's kind of like why I put out this video. And just to, just think about like your future. It doesn't matter. You could be like 40, 50, 60 years old. Just try and not overspend. Like, I have a brother who it took me years to convince him, but he would always rack up his credit card, and eventually it would just get maxed out. And then now the credit card company is budgeting you, and you also have to pay him like $300-$400 a month in fees. And it's like, everyone thinks it's like this big purchase that I made. Oh, it's because I went on this trip. I'm not going to go on that trip anymore. Oh, it's because I bought this $3,000 TV. I'm not going to buy that anymore. No, it's like, you look at it, it's like, well, it's $10 here at the burrito shop. Oh, $5 here on Amazon. Oh, renting a movie over here at Redbox. And all that stuff is like boom, 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 adds up. And the next thing you know, it's like, oh, I spent like $1,000 this month on coffee. It's like, okay, make coffee at home. All right. So just tell me some interesting things about your financial journeys in the comments below. And if you have anything, cool stories or anything you want my opinion on. I'm not like an expert financial person. I just live my life to be financially sound and not be tied to any like credit card debts or anything. I don't even have a car payment. The only debt I have is the house, because I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy a house straight up in cash. But like even car payments, I've never had a car payment. I always buy cars around $5,000 to $7,000, and they last me about 5 to 7 years. And they're not nice, but I have other friends that will like, oh, gotta have my nice Mercedes or BMW and have like $1,000 monthly car payment. And I'm just like why? Like, you could literally put that money away and save it, and then eventually one day you could buy that car in cash and it wouldn't even hurt your savings. So, all right, just comment below, share this with anyone that might see any value in it. Thanks.